Hello, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Driving with Randy. Oh, some Skittles on the ground. I know what those are from. You guys remember that podcast I filmed with Jake where we got the snowplow coming by? We were a wave to him. Hey, man. Anyways, you guys remember those Skittles? Those Skittles are, those Skittles are from that podcast I did with Jake. Those zombie Skittles. I believe it was the Halloween episode where we did that. And, wow. Let me just tell you, those were god-awful. It is, I probably could have shoveled, but I didn't. The car's warming up in the garage, so, filling the garage up with some, carbon monoxide? Is that what the fuck it gets out of the car? I don't know. Well, now we're in the car. Hello. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Driving with Randy. We don't get to ever park in the garage, so we parked in the garage today because the mother, she irritated me this morning. So I get the garage. That's kind of my logic. I don't think that's pretty good logic, but it's my logic. We got 367 miles until we are empty. I really want to... I'm running a little late given the weather conditions, but I actually kind of want to go to a parking lot and just whip a donut. So... with that being said, we might go do that. Fuck the alignment. Screw my tires. We got things to do, baby. I would just like it's bright out. When you get that fresh snow and then the sun comes out, it gets very bright. And it's a little hard to drive. I don't even know if I said this, but welcome to the podcast. My name is Road Rage Randy. Come on into my van. You guys are my passengers. And for those of you that have never tuned in to this glorious podcast, where the hell's my wallet? Oh, it's right here. My name is Road Rage Randy. This is a podcast that we record from my vehicle, my 2007 Toyota Sienna. Boy, do I love this thing. It is just a fabulous little work of art or manufacturing. It was just, I feel like it was manufactured and made by some of the best car experts in the world. This is probably one of the biggest creation of its time, unlike Teslas. Fuck Teslas. You guys know I hate Teslas. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying my Toyota Sienna is better than a Tesla. It is. And don't get me wrong, it's just, I can't believe I'm admitting that to you guys because there's going to be some backlash people hate. But that's okay. We're just shoving a piece of gum in the mouth. Today, I didn't know what we were going to podcast about, but I think what we're going to podcast about is a game I used to play. A computer game. And by used to, I mean I'm on a break right now. The game is kind of, you play, you take a break. You play, you take a break. You play, and then you take a break. Just because the grinding gets old. For those of you that know the game, it is called RuneScape. Now, RuneScape is a game that I played when I was growing up. If you don't know what it is and you're going to listen to the podcast, it's essentially an MMORPG, so a massive multi-online role-playing game that takes place in the Knights era. Like, there's knights and there's kings and there's, like, dragons. And essentially, you're a character. You start off as a level 3, and you go and you level different skills, which go up to level 99. Now, the original game I grew up playing, and what ended up happening is they changed the combat system so much and so many people didn't like it. Now, don't get me wrong, people like it, but that is now known as RuneScape 3. And when you're referring to playing back in the old games, you refer to as pre-EOC, pre-evolution of combat. And I was a pre-EOCer. I don't like the new combat system, but they came out with a 2007 release of the game, which is community ran. They do polls and such. Oh my goodness, the road conditions. They do polls and such, and they take into consideration what the community wants. Now, they do make some changes that are against the community, which usually result in backlash. But I understand for that the progress of the game, sometimes things have to be put into effect. Now, playing pre-EOC, used to be a game, you come home from school and you immediately want to get on. Now, for some reason, it tended to mess up our computer. I think the Java just didn't go well with our computer, so it tended to mess it up. But I spent countless hours. I remember when I first got the game, I was trying to my brother played at the time, so we'd have to trade off who gets the computer when and all that. It was kind of like you didn't know how the game worked, and you didn't have a lot of time to play, so you just went on to play. And then as time progressed, the game, or the people who enjoy the game, got older, so like me, and from there you start seeing people taking it a little more seriously, being more worried about how to do things and most efficient way to do things, and it kind of the game blew up again. Now, pre-EOC, this was probably back in middle school or high school. I got very interested. So the big thing back then was worrying about your money and not your stats. So if you had a giant cash stack, you were a baller. And I knew going into it that, sitting there and doing skills wasn't the way I was going to go about it. You think I'm going to sit here and chop 1K U logs to make 300K back in the day? No. It just take way too long. You start looking into alternative methods like botting, which is, for those of you that aren't familiar with the game, botting is pretty much a program that will do the skill for you, which is a bannable offense if they catch you. But essentially, I knew I had to make money. I knew I wanted to make money, but I had to develop a plan on how I was going to do that. And the way holy crap, we're slipping, sliding all over these roads. The way I decided to do that was I was going to do what is known as luring. I came across some YouTube videos, and it really inspired me watching these people make millions of gold on this game by luring. Now, luring is essentially you would convince somebody to bring valuable items into a dangerous place. Hey, it's Randy's Electric. This is not a sponsor, but we're driving next to a guy whose car says Randy Electric. It's not my company, but I'm Randy. I'm Road Rage Randy. I have my podcast, Driving with Randy. I should pimp my car out like him. Anyways, luring. So you'd pretty much convince people to go into these dangerous areas, and then you'd kill them for their shit. So essentially, you're stealing their stuff from them. And the videos really inspired me to do that. When you're in middle school and you're playing a game, you kind of anything goes. When you want to make money, you want to be the best. So I started with one of my friends, we'd have sleepovers. So I'd sleep over at his house and we'd just play all night long. And pretty much one night I'm like, let's try and lure people. And from there we kind of developed a method. It was nothing of significance. It was just a matter of getting our skills right to the point where we're good at what was known as talking. Talking is pretty much, you'd have a talker and you'd have a convincer. In most lures, you'd have a talker, you'd have a convincer, and you'd have a victim. What pretty much happened was we developed this method where we would take people up to level 40-some wilderness. That's where we would kill people. And there was an area where it was known people would bought white berries. So white berries were 1.2K each back in the day, which is a significant amount of money. And people would use a botting program to have their character just pick up these white berries all day long. And, you know, when you collect a full inventory, and that's like what, 58K or something? I can't do the math in my head, but no, that'd be 2K each. That'd be 56K. Essentially, you'd get maybe, I don't know, you'd get around 40K in inventory, right? And that adds up if you're doing it all day long, because it doesn't take long to do that. What we came up with was a method of, hey, just bring 3 items. That way you won't lose any if you die. So 3 items was, if you die in the wilderness, you keep 3 items if you're unskulled. You keep 4 if you have protection prayer. If you're skulled, you keep no items unless you have item protect, and then we call that 1 item. We call that +1. You're +1. So people often go out 1 iteming in the current day, where they'll just go out with one of the best swords in the game, and they're not afraid of losing it because they'll just keep the protection prayer on. And something that so essentially we'd convince these people to bring 3 items, convincing them that they're not going to lose anything. And what we'd do is we'd have 2 of our friends sit there and pretend to be bots along with the bots. So they'd sit there and pick white berries. We'd start attacking the white berry bots, and as soon as you're making a mess all over my windshield, you stupid truck, and my windshield wipers are not good right now, not good at all. So we'd convince them to go out there and skull, and we'd get items. Now, we weren't making a lot of money. We were making maybe 100, 200K, like an hour. We'd get 1 or 2 people an hour. Actually, we probably were getting 4 or 5 people an hour, but the loot probably added up to 200K an hour. And when we split that, it didn't add up to a lot. But that's kind of the baseline of how we started this luring thing. And then my friend wasn't very into it. He enjoyed it, but he didn't have goals like I did. Like, I really wanted to just go make a shit ton of money. And I kind of got involved in these clan chats where I'd start talking to people. I'd want to get involved in people luring. I didn't know the methods really. I just knew I created my own talking method to do this. This was my own lure, the whiteberry lure. Now, if you presented the whiteberry lure to any big lure, there'd be like, you're an idiot. You're making like chump change compared to what I make, because they were luring for millions of gold, and we were making, you know, a few $100,000 an hour, and they were making millions an hour. Sometimes sometimes billions an hour. And I just got obsessed with all these lures. I tried to teach myself how to do this, And then I came across a guy, my first big lure. He's like, I was hanging out in this chat, and he goes, hey, I have someone, I need a talker. I'm like, okay. I didn't know what I was doing. I told the guy, I don't know what I'm doing, but he's like, you're the only one, you gotta, I'll help you out. I'm like, all right, beautiful. So this guy took me in for one of his lures, and we did what was known as a chinchompa lure. Now, the basis behind this lure is we go into multi-combat zone. We tell the guy to bring 3 items. He's not going to be attacking anybody. And then we give him an item that's a multi-way item. So me and the guy would be standing right next to each other. So when the guy attacks with the multi-way item, he gets force skulled and he loses all of his stuff. And so that's what we did. It's called a chinchompa lure because the item used are chinchompas. Chinchompas explode. They kill everything within, or they make damage to within the 9-tile zone. So we ended up getting this guy for 2.4 million, and I was hyped because 1 million would take me forever to make. So a split, I got 1.2 mil, and from there I'm like, dang, this method is viable. So I taught my friend this method, and we started using it. We started making more money, getting some mills, getting some whips. That was the whole thing. We were getting abyssal whips. And from there, I was, you kind of get greedy. You're like, yeah, I'm now making 2 mil an hour doing this, but I want more. I want bigger and better lures. So I came up with this method, my own talking method. Now, there's something called a red portal lure, and there's something called a purple portal lure. Oftentimes, you'd have the same or similar talking method. I used my own. This wasn't leaked on YouTube or anything. I used my own method. You know what? I'm actually really off track because I'm talking in pay-to-play right now. But my luring career started in free-to-play. So free-to-play, you don't have all the areas and spells that you have in pay-to-play. I started in free-to-play, and I used my own method in what's called the red portal to pretty much convince a guy to go deep with all of his money, and I'd kill him for it, and I'd make a bunch of money. It's actually, so I started in free to play, and then I worked my way to pay to play, and then I used my free to play method and I transferred it over to pay to play. So let me break it down for you how this works. So first I would have to find my victim. Does the victim know they're the victim? Yes. Yes, they do. Well, oh shit. The roads are so bad. I don't know what, these guys drive like such morons. Like, we're in the slush and they're just slamming on their brakes. Not ideal. So I'd go find a victim. So there's this area known as the Grand Exchange. That's where everybody went to trade their items. You go to World 2 or World 1. That's where you find your victims. Now, how would I go about this? So, step 1, I changed my character to a female character. Why? Female characters are, people believe females. But the whole goal is you're a female character, but you tell the person you're a male, but you're using the female character because other people will think you're a female. You'll figure out what I mean in a moment. So essentially, I would find someone and I'd just ask a simple question. I'd add them as a friend and I'd be like, hey, can I ask you what your top is called? What is your hat called? Some kind of a unique thing. Just something to make small talk. You get talking to them, talk, and then what you do is you got to get these people thinking money. You got to get them being greedy. So I would bring up how I make a lot of money. I make tons of money. And they'd get curious and they'd always ask you how. Because rich want to get richer. And like I said, I started from scratch. I had probably 10 mil at the time I started luring for I would double my bank every lure. It was crazy. I'd find these people, I'd make friends with them. We get talking about money. And I'd say, yeah, I make a lot of money. I do what's called luring. Everyone knew what luring was because everyone had to keep their eye open for lures. They didn't want to get lured. And I pretty much said, yeah, if you want to ever help, I'd split with you 60-40 or 50-50. Heck, even I'd really like to help you out. Maybe we can do a 40-60 where I'd give him 60% and I keep 40%. And I'd say it'd be no risk to you. You don't have to risk anything. It'd be all money for you. And that's where it gets them. If there's a no risk to them profit opportunity with a guy who's making millions or claims to be, when I was starting out, I had to fake it to make it. And then once I made it, I had things to show for it. I'd be able to show them 240 mil and be like, yeah, that's just yesterday's loot or something, even though that was like my bank. Because I wasn't big. I was like your amateur kind of a lurer. And pretty much from there, I'd say, yeah, if I find someone, I'll let you know. I kid you not, some days you'd be able to 10 minutes later be like, hey, I found someone. Or you'd be like, a day later, you'd be like, hey, I have someone, I need you. Meet me here. Don't wear anything. No risk to you. I'll tell you what to say. Stuff like that. So essentially, you are telling them that you guys are going to lure somebody else, but then you turn on them. And so the person I was going to lure was my friend Nick. Now, I created this talking method that was pretty much, I need to explain the female thing. So I was a female character because what I would do is, so we have Nick and then we'll call them the victim. But the victim doesn't know they're the victim. So we tell the victim, yeah, this Nick guy thinks I'm a female IRL. What an idiot, just because I have a female character. So your victim would know that you're actually a guy, but Nick thinks you're a female, even though in reality, Nick knows you're a guy. They both know you're a guy. So what we do is I would sit there and I would try and lure my friend Nick. And long story short, we'd go through about 3 rounds where I would pull Nick in and then I'd pull the other guy in, and then Nick would get scared and he'd run out because he had all of his items, and he'd say something along the lines of like, why am I risking and he has nothing? I don't want to die. And he's like, oh, and I say, hey, we're just shooting a music video. It's like, it's blatantly obvious that if Nick is believing what I'm saying, he's actually like handicapped. But to the guy, he just thinks, God, this guy's an idiot. I can't wait to steal his money. This is going to be great. And, I'd make up some story about how my friend Nick was scamming people. So, you have that kind of emotional attachment where the guy would be like, oh, beautiful. I'm not hurting this random innocent guy. I'm hurting someone who's hurt other people, kind of a deal. And pretty much after some trial and error and such, it essentially get down to, hey, I take these teleports. I think they work. I need you to risk. I would try and convince the guy that I am not there for his stuff. So round 1, he'd go in with nothing. Opportunity 2, I'd tell him just go bank it after you show the guy your stuff. Round 3, I'd say, walk him to the middle with your stuff, and then you can run out, and then I will, bank your stuff and run back in. And then round 4, I'd say this guy's getting really irritated. Here, let me see if this still works. So I trade him some teleports. And the teleports, so if you go in it in a safe, so you do no item risk, you go in safe, teleports work. But if you go in dangerous, they do not work. So I'd take him into a safe area, and I'd be like, hey, try these teleports. I think they work. I'm not going to kill you, but I just want you to know that you have an alternative if this were to happen. So I'd take him in, he'd teleport out, success. I'm like, beautiful, just bring your stuff in, and then I'll kill the guy and there'll be no worries. And so once Nick was in there with all of his stuff, usually 60 to 100 mil, and then we had this other guy in there with 20 mil. He's like, why would we kill him for 20 when this guy's got 60? He's got a teleport. He's 100% safe, right? Nope, teleport doesn't work. We'd kill him. Me and Nick would live happily ever after. We'd make money, and we'd go split it. Yeah, some of the people would get angry with us. We've had Skype lures where kids were crying. And to me, it was kind of just, it's part of the game. When I started the game again, back in 2016 maybe, I made the vow that I would never scam anyone. I would never lure anybody. And believe it or not, one of my biggest lures I took care of back in the day, 40 minutes. Some idiot called me, so I don't know where I left off, but back in the day, I got a guy dead within 40 minutes. My biggest lure ever, actually. It was 89 mil, and I dual logged. So my friend Nick wasn't up, so I got up from school. God, these drivers! Drive! I'm trying to move over, and you guys just... It's irritating. Essentially, from the time I woke up at 7 o'clock, I had him dead by 8 o'clock. I dual logged, which means my friend Nick, I knew his password. He wasn't able to log in. The guy that I killed actually bought it with real money, which is against the rules. So I killed him for it. It was a good time. I was very happy. 89 mil lure. That was insane. When I started up again, I vowed that I wasn't going to lure or scam anybody. And believe it or not, I met these two guys, named Jake and Brody. And I joined their clan. The second day of knowing them, Brody traded me Jake's entire bank, which was, 160 mil. And this is after 2 days of knowing me. Brody knows now that, you shouldn't do that. But not even for a second did I think about logging out and taking that guy's stuff. And you know what? I'm really happy that I didn't, because when I met these two guys, I was in a very dark place in my life. I wasn't happy. And those two are, I've never met them in person, but those two are still probably two of my best friends to this day. None of us play RuneScape regularly, but we still do talk, and it kind of changed. I changed my ways from the middle school luring, taking people's money, to just being friendly on the games. And I met two of my best friends today through that game. So I will be forever thankful for the game of RuneScape. I actually met another guy that He lives about an hour and a half away from me, and we met for lunch one time. And if he's ever up here again, we're certainly gonna, we have plans to meet again. I think meeting with strangers over the internet might not be the best idea, but if you actually genuinely know the people, you get to, you talk with them every day, you got texts, you see what kind of a person they are on other social media, you really kind of get a sense of who people are. And for that, I'm very grateful. I hope I meet up with Brody and Jake one day. I'm going to fly out to Connecticut and have ourselves a good time. With that, I'm going to end the podcast. A little different today. We kind of talked about gaming, but it's some content. I hope you guys very much enjoyed the podcast. You can follow me on social media, on Twitter at Thoughts by Randy. You can go over to Reddit, and we have r/driving with Randy. I'd love to hear from you guys. Make sure you leave a review on iTunes. Send me a message on Twitter. Fan interaction, baby. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for tuning in. God bless you all. My name's Road Rage Randy. We'll see you next time. Peace.